that's when I was like, I need a guitar. I need to figure out, how to play a guitar. Understanding like one guy with an AK is just as dangerous as 100 guys with an AK.
Mhm.
Depending on his, willingness to die and how many people he can try and take with him. Didn't know, so I'm just driving around shooting at people that are shooting at us and that are killing us, and we're killing them, and that was it.
What's your earliest memory? Like, do you recall at some point in your childhood saying, "This is what I want to do"?
Yeah, like very early, I started buying 45 records at the record store, probably by the age of 5.
Right.
And my parents, probably one of the best thing, they were great humans and great people and great parents. I had a great childhood, but one of the things that they did for me was expose me to live music
Right.
at a very young age. So I think by 6, I was seeing, concerts. Chicago,
Yeah.
Barry Manilow was one of my first concerts. And as soon as I saw that stuff, I was like, that's what I want to do. They bought a piano with the promise that I would take piano lessons and start to learn and, be proper with it. And I did that for probably 5 years. And then it just kind of, continued on. By the time I got into 4th grade, the school music programs were really strong where I grew up. So I was playing piano, taking piano lessons, also playing the clarinet, saxophone, and also started playing in my church youth orchestra. And it just kind of continued to there until really about 1980 when Back in Black came out, and I bought that album, and you can't play that stuff on a saxophone or a piano. So that's when I was like, I need a guitar. I need to figure out, how to play a guitar. So that's really kind of the evolution from start to where it started to get more serious.
Now, were your parents involved directly with you during this phase? I only ask because I took my sons to a Bush and Live concert 2 summers ago, when they were in town. And at the time, they were 4 and 5. They enjoyed it, but they were more running around the family area more than paying attention. So then we started taking lessons, my oldest son, back in March, but obviously everything got froze at that point. So we haven't picked it up at all. But I'm not seeing much in terms of him really connecting or being interested in it, other than we do watch music videos. How involved were your parents when you were going through this?
I think that they were pretty involved. I mean, driving me to not piano lessons because that was like in my neighborhood, but driving me to private saxophone lessons, driving me to the orchestra practice on Wednesday nights and things like that. So they were definitely involved. Um, I think, for me, I started like making up my own songs and singing my own songs, and it could be about, most of them were comedy, really.
Mhm.
My dad would be pissed off in the car and yell at somebody, and I'd start singing a song about the guy that he was yelling at. And that started really early, like probably like two or three. And so I think, when I look at my children, because I hope that they had picked up or would pick up, the musical gene, neither one of them really, other than maybe liking listening to music a lot and connecting with music, in a more emotional way,
Right.
um, listening, but neither one of them picked up on an instrument. Neither one of them really showed the desire or drive. And at some point, you can make a child take lessons, but unless they have that love of it, they don't want to do it.
Right.
Kind of like anything. Hey, we're going to go ski. Okay, if they hate it, you can force them
You
to,
must
and
be, and you must be happy and love this and do this forever.
yeah, exactly.
I make it a point not to do that with my kids, especially with sports, because you see it all the time. Um, so I just want to be there. So I'm trying to think, like, if you're so into it, what was your pattern? And maybe I can kind of exhibit that with my kids, which is get them interested, but don't push too hard.
Yeah,
And hopefully something will stick, whether it's music, sports, the arts of some kind. I just want to find something that they're passionate about, which I'm still looking for. And then right now they're only 6 and 7, so I still have time, but I'm kind of curious to see like what's going to be their focus. The other question I had, I did watch a podcast of you. I forget which one it was, but it was about that you had a band, I guess, in your teenage years, and you had the struggles of somebody left, now you got to find to replace him. Someone else left, and it was a struggle. So at some point, you decided, all right, well, let me try the military first, and then go back. Was it like that? Like you told yourself, let me go to the military. I'll put this on the back burner as far as the music path.
I think I got frustrated,
Right.
and the last band that I was in, we had some really good members. Um, the bass player that was in the band, it took us a long time to find him, and by the time we found him, he had won back in the 80s. They had these hot licks competitions in Maryland,
Hmm.
and so you'd get up there, you get 3 minutes on the stage, and it was a huge thing. It was like a live event,
Right.
and dudes would get up there and just rip. And he won the Maryland Hot Licks bass competition like 3 years in a row. This dude was just a phenomenal player.
Right.
And we had another guitar player in the band who was really kind of writing all the material, and I was a little too young and naive really to have much depth and really to be able to put any soul into anything. So I was just happy-go-lucky, what are we playing today kind of thing,
Right.
and happy to just enjoy that part of it. And there was some stuff that happened with him at the very end that we were on a track and on the path to be able to really do something with it,
Hmm.
and all because of weird personality stuff and conflicts and things like that, it all just kind of fell apart.
And
And it was a real kick in the gut for me,
right.
and it really, it kind of broke my heart.
So the,
And so I was like, forget those people, forget all the drama and all that crap. It's going to take me another 2 years
right.
to rebuild this thing and find all the right people, with the exception of a couple of the guys that were still, hanging on to it. And I just got frustrated with it. And, that was it. So what can I do now? And literally just went and joined the army.
Right. And looking back, do you wish that you stuck with that trajectory? Because I don't know the music industry like that, but I have to assume, just from reading and seeing these bands uh, come and go, that's kind of normal. Like you lose a guy, you gotta kind of start over, you pick someone up, start over. It doesn't work. The chemistry's not there. You're not on the same page. That could last 10, 20 years. Do you kind
Sure.
of that you stuck to that trajectory?
I used to think, probably my whole time in the military, I thought, oh man, I really should have stuck it out. Although I think I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And and I would say everybody has a path in life, whatever that might be. And sometimes your path deviates and takes the long way around and everything else. I think for me, I don't think it could have happened when I was younger, because I don't think that I had the depth
Right.
and the soul that I have now. Um, what I put into music now is a lot different than what I put into music back then. I don't think I had the maturity level. I think it was about partying. It was about living that whole piece of it, and not really about the depth of the things that I was doing and creating. So, or a part of creating. And so I feel like it was the journey that I needed to take to get me to a place where I could now like express myself through music with some sort of depth and soul,
Right.
you know?
Now, the other question I had regarding your military service, the other thing I saw in that interview was that you kind of knew what you wanted to do with the military. You want to go as far as possible and do the most high speed stuff as possible. Like, how did you have that knowledge? Because most people, when they walk to a recruiter, they're like, I don't know, what jobs do you have? And I did the same thing. And guys like, well, I was like, what's the shortest training? He's like, oh, cable systems wire installer, which is basically a cable dog. And it was only
Sure.
7 weeks AIT, and I was like, I'll take that. But as you progress in your military career, you start to learn, wow, I could have done this, I could have done that, and that was never even thrown out as an option. Like, how did you know you what you wanted to do?
So when I turned 18 and had to sign up for selective services, the recruiters were calling me all the time. And, what do you want to do with your life? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm playing music, go away. I'm not joining the army,
Right.
and, we've got a band in the army. You can play in the band. And
Yeah.
Like, you could do that. And I'm like, nah, you don't play the kind of stuff that I play, and it's not going to work. So there was a little bit of that. I was, I would, I would definitely lean towards the risk taker behavior type of young person.
Right.
And, I would climb weird stuff. I would, never got in trouble and got caught at anything, but, I did a lot of risky things. And so I think for me, it was always going to be about something a little more extreme in terms of risk.
Right.
So I had a buddy that joined the Air Force, and I saw him for the first time after he had gone through basic and AIT, and he was home, maybe for leave or something like that. And he was talking about some guys that came around at the end of basic training, and they were looking for volunteers to go be a part of this special unit that jumped in behind enemy lines to rescue down pilots.
Right.
And that was the first thing that I heard, and I was like, ooh, that
Yeah.
that sounds cool. So the first recruiter that I went and talked to was the Air Force recruiter, specifically about that job.
Mhm.
He kind of gave me the runaround, and it took a long time for me to figure out that he wasn't being upfront with me.
Right.
And basically told me,
Shocker for a
yeah, but basically told me I can get you a contract, and lied to me about that. I signed up, and I was leaving one day frustrated, and then the Army guy said, hey, come on in here. What's he telling you? What do you want to do? And I just said, I want to be in like something like Delta Force. And he was like, well, you can't do that. You got to be something first, like Special Forces. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And he goes, well, you can't do that either. You got to be something before that, like a Ranger. And that was the path that I, ended up going, minus the Special Forces thing.
Now, with that, did you jump from Ranger to Delta, or was there the Special Forces in between?
No, I went from, so I did about 4.5 years in B Company, 3rd Ranger Battalion, deployed to Mogadishu.
Right.
Did that. I came back. I was supposed to have gone, while we were in Mogadishu, I was supposed to go to the Ranger Reconnaissance Detachment, and which was just a little more, skilled oriented, specialized mission detachment in the Ranger Regiment, and got to go through like military free fall and stuff like that. I was supposed to go there in October of 93, or at least go to selection in October of 93, but I was in Mogadishu.
Right.
And when I got back from Mogadishu, we had so many dudes in my platoon that had either been killed or been hurt that I felt like, as an NCO, then
Right.
I'd be abandoning my platoon. So I agreed to stay like another year. I
Mm.
went to the recon detachment selection, and then was there for 3 years, and then went to Delta selection in the fall of 1998. So yeah, that was my progression. No Special Forces. I ended up going to the Special Forces qualification course, but that was after I was at the unit.
Right. I do want to go back a second, because this is out of curiosity mostly. You know how a lot of parents are skeptical about music career, like, how you wasting your time, and then they also feel the same way about military, like, don't do that either. Like, how were they supportive during all your choices?
Yeah, I think initially it was probably probably a little bit of a letdown for my parents.
Right.
My dad was a PhD doctor, like psychologist, and his plan for me, from being a little kid, was to be, like Johns Hopkins educated, psych major type of job. So I think initially they were like, oh wow, okay, but they supported it, and they were all in, the whole time that I was in the military. They were behind everything, and I'm sure worried to death, many times and things like that, but they were really good all throughout.
Do you fill them in on your history and your experiences, or do you not want to worry them, or even like plant any seeds in their heads as like how close you could have came to not being here today?
Yeah, they knew some of it, and every now and again we'll talk about something more about, we might be talking about my children, and they'll talk about a time that they came down to help watch my kids.
Right.
And, I was deployed then, and that's when this happened, or, they kind of hear a lot of those things now, and they're like, well, thank God we didn't know about it then.
Right.
And, they knew what unit I was in, and they knew, where I was and kind of what was going on. would have been, I think people have this misconception that because you're in a special mission unit that like nobody knows anything,
Right.
you can't really lie about some things. And anyway, they were very supportive throughout.
Okay. Now, I got quite familiar with the whole Mogadishu operation from talking to Tom Sato, which I know you guys are connected.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too deep into the details there. The only question I really have is, out of that experience, what did you take away from it, as far as what lessons did you learn, and how did you apply that in everyday, whether it's what you do now or in the military going forward or in life in general?
Man, I was so young there, that I think depending on what unit you were assigned, what your role was within that unit, your level of maturity, uh, your duty position, like being a squad leader, you probably have a different takeaway than being a guy that's just running around, a private or a rifleman or something like that. For me, I was always, I guess, a life's too short, burn the candle at both ends kind of person. And if anything, that may have accelerated that a little bit. Um, maybe some of that for the good, maybe some of that for the bad. It made me realize, militarily speaking, we didn't have a lot of the support things that we should have had. And so we were operating without, AC-130 gunships and a lot of the things that could have changed the outcome of the battle. So the importance of having the things that you might need. I think probably the biggest thing was realizing, one guy with a gun can do so much damage to to a large group of people.
Sure.
And, understanding now that there are, I don't know, thousands of people running around with guns trying to kill us,
Mhm.
the magnitude of that, but really, seeing how much damage one guy can do. And, so in military, there's doctrine that says, if you're attacking a position, there should be this many, good guys against this many bad guys, and a lot of that stuff. And a lot of that doctrine is pretty spot on in terms of, what's required. But yeah, and there are huge lessons, right? Like having the QRF already established and ready to go and prepared to launch, and having armored vehicles to get you out of a script. I mean, there's, probably thousands of lessons that you could take away. But I think for me, it was just understanding, like, one guy with an AK is just as dangerous as 100 guys with an AK,
Mhm.
depending on his, willingness to die and how many people he can try and take with him.
Right. And now, in terms of this for the leadership Facebook group page, in terms of leadership, how important is that under that type of situation, as far as the NCO's role, the officer's role, and everybody's role in between? Like, how important is leadership? Did you learn anything from that perspective then?
Um, I can't say that I really learned something. I mean, I learned some things, but it didn't really necessarily apply to me. Maybe it applied to the people that I had as leaders at the time. Um, as an example, we didn't really have a course of action for what happens if we're overwhelmed in the middle of the street with no cover,
Right.
right? The Rangers didn't have radios. Like, we weren't running around talking on radios to one another. The only way to disseminate information was by, in person, running across the street so I don't feel like we had a good plan for when things go wrong, how do we adjust? How do we put out information? So, I basically went the majority of the day and the night, and the next morning, not really knowing anything that was going on, you know, um, because there wasn't really a means to communicate it.
Right.
So, hey, course of action one is we establish our blocking position at this intersection. The target building's behind us, and if we receive overwhelming, fire, or we have to, get inside of a house, or do, like, we could have come up with a course of action so that now we're able to defend something. Now we're able to, whatever it might be. But to, like, run around in the street all over the place with no cover, probably isn't the right answer.
Right.
You know, not having the QRF ready to go, not having the assets overhead that we needed. There, you know, there are a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine there must have been a massive AAR on a federal level from that whole, I wouldn't call it debacle, but that whole operation.
sure.
From your perspective, what did you want to see from your leaders as far as more of? What did you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Was there any interaction that you took from your own personal AAR when it comes to your chain of command?
Not really, other than, like I said, if we didn't have a plan, so I don't blame a leader for not giving me information when it was almost physically impossible.
Right.
You know, hey, here's what we're doing, Brad. Hey guys, gather around real quick. Hey, we're gonna go exfil some casualties. I didn't know, so I'm just driving around shooting at people that are shooting at us and that are killing us, and we're killing them, and that was it. I didn't know what we were doing or why we were doing it.
And it was just
But
that.
there's no blame in that regard. It's just more like there should have been another, plan in place to get information to people, or, get inside, go secure, get into a secure facility, do something so that we can disseminate information and at least put out information, that type of thing.
Right. I did also want to talk about the other band members for Silence and Light. You came across them in the service, but they happen to be from notable bands in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less. Me and Jason Everman, who was the guy that was in Nirvana and Soundgarden,
Okay.
and Mindfunk, before he joined the Army, he and I served together at the same time for the most part, but we didn't know each other at the time. I think we knew of each other, but we didn't know each other. And it wasn't until right after I retired that he and I, through a mutual friend, got to hang out in New York, and we just started hanging out. And that's kind of where the band idea started, to come together.
Right.
The other guys all came about through the social media. So after I came up with the idea to do the band thing, and talking to Jason about it, I put together a social media page, and it kind of grew organically. So I was trying to say, here's what I'm doing. And people just started hitting me up. So the bass player, Tyson, was the first guy to kind of hit me up organically and say, I don't know exactly what you got going on, but I would love to be a part of it. And I said, do you play an instrument? And we went back and forth for a little bit, and then we met up, and we clicked personally, and let's try and make this happen. So that's kind of how it started to happen. Same thing happened with the drummer. Same thing happened with the singer, Fred. Only we met Fred's brother, and Fred's brother kind of introduced us to Fred. So it grew in a very organic way.
And what year was that you guys kind of linked up and you had everybody that you have now?
So I think I started talking with Tyson in 2017, or not with Tyson, with Jason in 2017. That's kind of when the idea was spawned.
Okay.
And then over the next 6 months or so, it kind of grew to everybody. And the first time we got together in person was 2018. So it all happened very quickly. And then in the interim, we got hit up by a Grammy award-winning producer who was a veteran also, and he had came across the social media page and basically offered the same thing, like, hey, I'd love to help. Here's who I am, and if I can produce this for you, I'd love to do it. And that's how that happened.
Now, as far as I went on your website to get more information, and a lot of the music is themed to help veterans, at least bring awareness to that. Do you want to talk about that? Like, what is the angle there and the direction?
So really what it is, I mean, the music could be kind of about whatever, right? But it's more about the overall, mission statement is, we're making records, and if you buy the record or you stream the record and we get a royalty from it, which we do, we're taking those music royalties and we're giving them to special operations and veteran and first responder charitable organizations. So we're not making money off of the music sales portion of what we're doing. That's something that we're contributing directly. And you know, when this started, I didn't want to like create a foundation. I felt like there are enough charitable organizations, and there are enough foundations out there. I didn't want to create another one and tap into the same, you know, people to try and get money from donors and everything else. And, you know, here's mine slightly different. All I'm saying is, all you have to do is buy a song. All you have to do is stream stuff, be a listener, whatever. And that's donating. And I thought that was a pretty cool and clever kind of way to say, you know, buying a 99-cent song or buying a $9.99 album is a pretty good way. You're getting good music, and you're also, you know, giving to a charitable organization that's helping guys from the community.
Yeah, and that's kind of along the lines of what I do. I've interviewed different charitable organizations just to bring awareness to that, so that veterans can learn that they even exist. Because a lot of times they don't know that this particular organization exists or that one. Because it's not a one fit all approach. There are some organizations that are better suited for some. So that's part of what I do, is to write about it, research it, and then put it out there for the world to see. And like, all right, I'm interested in that. Let me get involved and let me learn more about it. What is the direction the band is heading to, as far as where's the next year, 2, 5, 10 years looking like?
Well, I think there's one other portion of the band that I think is important to talk about, and that is, not only is there, you know, we're doing something in which people can contribute and give back, right? That's a very good thing. But the second and kind of unintended consequences were also to say, you know, hey, I'm public now. I've done a lot of things in the military. I've lived through a lot of bad times, you know, dealt with a lot of deaths, suicides, murder, suicides, all kinds of stuff. And part of this is to be able to say, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's really the only reason why I put my, you know, 20 years of service into this at all, is to say, look, I've been there too. I'm one of you guys. Like, this is about us helping us. And if I can do it, figure out what works for you, find something. Giving back gives you a tremendous sense of purpose. And that's one of the things that most veterans, whether they get medically retired or medically discharged or injured, or, you know, whatever might be going on, that's something that we all feel is, hey, what am I doing now that's as important as what I did back then? And, you know, this is something that gives me a healthy and creative and positive outlet to get rid of some of that, you know, negative baggage and stuff that I dealt with. And also, like I said, to be an example and say, look, guys, gals, whomever, if I can do this, you can do it too. So that's one part. The second part, your question, the direction. So I think, you know, I kind of went into this knowing that the first album was really just about getting an album out. And it was all we could do to kind of get enough material together in the very short period of time that we had to get into the studio just to get this thing done. And I don't think any of us are happy or completely satisfied with the first album. I think it's great for what it is. We've had time to really kind of dial the material in, and the songs are more mature. The songs are better. We've got a better following. We've got, you know, more resources and people there to help and things like that. So we've got a publicist that'll come on board when the album cycle starts to spin up. Same publicist as Ozzy Osbourne. So, you know, we're not talking junior varsity level stuff here. We've got a really strong album that we'll be recording May and June. And so that'll probably be releasing, I would say, you know, August timeframe. And, you know, I think, and a record label involved now too. So, you know, I think between those three things, more distribution through the record label, through their distribution channels, more publicity with a publicist getting involved and getting us in. You know, for us, I think to be even more successful is we've got to cross over outside of the veteran community and become, you know, more of a everybody knows about it, not just veterans and first responders and the people that are typically kind of our base. So we're trying to expand that to say, this isn't just songs about losing my teammate. It's stuff that deals with all the emotions that everybody deals with: loss of a parent, loss of a brother, loss of, it could be loss, it could be the joys of, mission success, it could be all of that stuff. So none of it is something that's there isn't a single song that's like just geared towards veterans. It's emotional music. It's not, hey, I'm out partying and drinking on a Friday night and good times and strippers, and that's not the music. It's definitely got some meaning and some purpose and some depth.
Okay, so you're talking about the second album, hopefully August timeframe. Is there
Mhm.
like a single or samples that we can listen to now?
So we'll do that once we get everything recorded.
Okay.
We're going to do a couple of special things. I think one is we'll get a single out pretty quickly, and that'll go up and kind of help promote the whole thing. And the publicists will be able to get behind that and be able to put stuff out there. So we'll do that, and then we'll do a couple of different like special download codes for people that do certain things. Like maybe we'll do a vinyl release, and if you buy the vinyl, which will obviously that's donations towards the charitable organizations that we support, you'll get a download code and you'll get a couple of special songs that are just for those people. So we've got, I think, new merchandise, new everything, all that stuff. Our plan is to kind of roll that out all at once. So we're doing all the things that we can do now. While we can't play out, we can't play shows, we can't do much of that. So here are the things we can do. We can get everything else lined up and kind of ready to go, so that when the album releases, everything is rock solid.
Right. Now, as far as the social media, like what do you want to promote? What do you want out there? The website primarily, or is it an Instagram page?
Yeah, I think Silence and Light official on Instagram.
Okay.
Silence and Light official, I think, is probably, that's the band page. Each of the band members have their social media. Some of us are more active than others,
Right.
but that's probably the best place. And from there, you get all the information. It links to our website, it links to our merchandise and things like that. So people ask me a lot, how can we support? How can we help out? Aside from buying music, and buying merchandise is definitely the way to do that. So all the things that we've done to date and all the things that we're going to do cost considerable amounts of money.
Sure.
Recording an album is, about $35,000 venture, if you do it the right way. So that's stuff that we've all taken care of personally. And, if we were to help, try and recoup any bit of that, definitely buying merchandise, buying a t-shirt, buying a hat. And again, we've got more stuff that'll be coming out, in the next few months. But that's a way that people can help us out. So that'll help pay for mastering songs that cost, $500 a song to master, just things like that. So it adds up very quickly.
Yeah, I bet. I just thought with technology that it would, I don't want to say be simple, but it would be less expensive to do all that. I didn't realize there was that much to it. I mean,
Well,
I'm not.
you can do it on the cheap. You can definitely do it on the cheap. And I think one of the things that we wanted to do with the first album was, because we did it ourselves and because we did it for real. We went to LA, we recorded in Los Angeles with a Grammy Award winning producer and legit studio and engineers and everything else, paid for all the mixing and mastering and all of that stuff these are the top level people in industry that we're working with. And I think the intent was to say, this is a real thing. This isn't, we're not playing it O'Malley's on Friday night, open mic night. Like the first show we played was in front of 5,000 people. And, that's kind of where we're coming into the game. So we're playing a special benefit April 24th in the DC area. And I don't know if we're going to be able to promote that necessarily, but that's kind of the only live thing that we've got coming up, because everything else is pretty much shut down for now. But
Right. It sounds like you have everything laid out. It's just a matter of the timing, I guess.
yeah.
I don't have any more questions regarding how I have the article in my head mapped out, but is there anything else that you want me to know or mention?
The only thing I would want to mention additionally is the two charitable organizations that we're contributing to.
Okay.
And, those are kind of important because really I'm kind of doing the same thing with them. Like, we're not giving them a ton of money because the music royalties aren't that, it's not a very lucrative thing. Out of a 99-cent song that sells on iTunes, you're getting about 61 cents,
Right.
and people are generally cheap. Like, everybody's on Apple Music. They stream stuff, or Spotify, our stuff's on there too.
Right.
But streams, you're not getting decent compensation unless you're in the millions and millions of streams.
Right.
So we've done way better than what our goal was. Our goal originally was like, we can sell or stream and get downloaded like 5,000 copies. Like, that's a win. We're like in the hundreds of thousands of downloads and streams and things like that. So we've done way better. I know we can do more, and we can get in front of larger audiences and things like that, just through like stuff you're doing. But Warrior's Heart is one of the main things that we're supporting, and a lot of that, like I said, it's mainly to get them out there too, because they're doing great stuff for the veteran and first responder community. And the thing that I like about Warrior's Heart is that it's a physical place, and it's not just oriented towards treating PTSD. PTSD is like this big ball of nasty stuff, like addiction and alcohol and drug abuse and things like that. So they help kind of get people clean, and once they get them clean, then they can start really working on the issues. And they also use art as a form of therapy, whether it be sculpting or painting or music. They do that. So I love that. The other one is the Marine Raider Foundation, and they directly help families of Marine Raiders that were killed, and support them, whether it's paying for hotels or paying for plane tickets and things like that. So those are the two things I would want to link to, and at least put some blurbs out on what they do.
Okay, I'll definitely mention that. That wraps up my questions, so I'm going to pause the recording part of it.